consider it therapy, is that people from his church came to his bedside day after day and prayed for him. So I sent him home as he wanted to do, and I was convinced that he would be dead in a couple of days. A year later, I couldn't believe he was still alive. I went down to the radiology department, looked at his new chest x-ray, put it alongside the old one, which had lung cancer throughout, but the new one was normal. The only therapy this man had had, if you consider it that, was prayer. And I was astonished by that. I, at that point in my life, was not ready to accept that prayer did anything. I just called it a spontaneous remission and let it go at that. But that was seared into my brain, and I couldn't forget it. And years later, when the studies came out supporting prayer, I thought back about that and began to ask questions about that. I began to look at surveys of patients whose diseases simply went away. And one of the questions that these patients were asked was, what do you think accounted for the disappearance of your illness? Most of these people would say, well, it had something to do with my thought, the way I chose to live my life. Most of them would list some sort of spiritual practice, such as prayer. 75% say that prayer accounted for why they got well. But others would list things like music, doing mental imagery. It's almost embarrassing about the variety of things people describe. Actually, the prevalent idea is that good doctors, scientifically oriented doctors, don't believe any of this. That happens to be a false picture. We know that because of surveys that have been recently done. The best one came 3 years ago, and it looked at over 1,000 physicians around the United States, asking them their beliefs about prayer, remote healing, and so on. 75% of these physicians said that they believe that spiritual beliefs can help people get well. 74% said that they think prayer can work at a distance, and 55% said they had actually seen results in their own patients that resembled what they call miracles. This is not the picture people have of doctors. Here's the explanatory factor here. If you ask doctors publicly what they believe, they will just deny that this stuff is real. But if you ask them anonymously on surveys where they do not have to sign their name, you get a completely different picture. These are some benches I crafted for meditation and sitting circle. I live in a part of the world where the Native American tradition is quite strong in northern New Mexico. And I've had the opportunity to talk with many Native American healers and shamans about what they think about prayer and intentionality. And it's taken for granted in their tradition that these things are real. They think it quite odd that we have lost touch with this. One shaman I asked in the area where I live whether or not she believed in prayer. She said, "Oh, don't ask me that. We don't even have a word for prayer. It's just in the air. We don't make anything special out of it. You white people want to fancify this and make something really special out of prayer. It's just the way the world works." We know in modern medicine that many things work, although we don't have an understanding of how. A classic example is the general anesthetics. We don't know how anesthesia really works, but we know that it does, so we use it in spite of our ignorance about how it happens.
I know enough about physics to know how little I know about physics. And so I know that a lot of the popular New Age writings that invoke quantum physics as sort of a rationale for psychic and spiritual things, they're really being poetic. I mean, it's kind of beautiful in a way, but quantum physics is not poetry. Our search for truth, are we really going anywhere, or are we just walking on a treadmill?
In looking for mechanisms for how the psi operates, I can speculate, but it'd be too strong a statement to say that I think it's specifically linked to, say, zero-point energy or vacuum fluctuations. But it's still too early to really understand. I mean, even now, we know that dark energy is some 70+% of the universe. Dark matter appears to be some 20+% of the universe. You add it all up, it turns out that 4% of the universe we understand, 96% of the universe we don't have a clue. So facing into that kind of reality, one must be very cautious about saying something can't be.
Imagine that there was no Moses, no Buddha, no Jesus, no Muhammad. Imagine there was no Old Testament, no Kabbalah, no New Testament, no Koran. Imagine there were no seers, no prophets, no medicine women or men. There was just 21st century science. Would science on its own, in its attempt to understand the origin and evolution of order in the universe, including us in our personal lives, would it come to the conclusion that some sort of a guiding, organizing, designing process, some sort of a GOD existed? And the conclusion that I've come to over 20 years of research, beginning at Yale and continuing at the University of Arizona, is that the answer is yes. And so to be truly comprehensive about what a creative intelligence would mean, it would have to be big enough to encompass quantum physics and Newtonian physics and string theory, and all the physics that would subsequently come along.
We're into mystery and the unknown, and so to symbolize that, I stenciled one of my favorite sayings, something unknown is doing we don't know what. This is Sir Arthur Eddington's comment about the uncertainty principle in modern physics, but I love this comment so much I apply it to all areas of life. It's my favorite explanation for everything.
Morphic or zero-point fields, quantum processes in our brain, spirit, consciousness, universal energy, G-O-D. It seems that our psychic connections are part of a great, mysterious mix of energy and information that lies at the heart of nature. Whatever the budding theories on psychic phenomena, I may not have found a proper explanation, but that does not mean we don't have these powers. Most of the pioneering scientists I met challenge the prevailing materialistic worldview that our mind is just limited to our brain. Their research demonstrates that sometimes there is an aspect of our consciousness that transcends space and time, that transcends the limits of our physical senses, that we can influence our physical world, and that we are mysteriously interconnected.
Come. Yes, we can.
This journey, prompted by my daughter's dream, my father's accident, and the weird spoon bending, brought me to a point where I can confidently say that I have not been deluding myself. The paranormal actually seems normal. But still I wonder, did I, in the process, just find scientific evidence for our divinity, or for spirit?
Okay, well, If the mind can sometimes reach out to another mind, tell about the state of the world at a distance, foresee the future, have a direct influence on matter through psychokinesis or heal things, to me that sounds a lot like the ideas of a spirit. Now, that doesn't mean that the Catholics are completely right or the Baptists are completely right or the Buddhists or something like that, but it does mean there's a reality behind spiritual systems that very much deserves our attention. That's the importance of psychic phenomena and the Big Five.
Call me.
I'm not answering a question like that on tape. It would get me killed.
Wilt u naar aanleiding van deze uitzending reageren of een gratis programmagids bestellen? Bezoek dan onze website boeddhistischeomroep.nl. DVD's van onze programma's kunt u bestellen op 010 411 3977.
Nouri werkt hard in het restaurant van zijn vader. Maar ondanks alles maakt het geen winst.
Als ik zo om me heen kijk, dan kan je wel wat hulp gebruiken, vriend.
Wat heb je te bieden?
Papa, je gaat het niet